The roll.
Legislator Foley,
Present.
Legislator Santulli, Legislator Saskin, Legislator Hood Jr., Legislator Cornell, Committee Vice Chair Legislator Paul,
Here.
Committee Chair Legislator Earl.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Laura. This is our first meeting of the night, so Legislator Soskin, you want to lead us in the pledge? To the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Legislator Soskin, veteran here on the legislature. We have one item tonight. First, adopt the minutes of our October 25th, 2022 meeting, moved by Legislator Soskin, second by Legislator Paul. Okay, check that. Moved by Legislator Santulli, second by Legislator Paul. Okay. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Minutes approved. One, referral number 8024. Approving acceptance of a grant funds in the amount of $28,000 no county tax dollars from the state of New York Governor's Traffic Safety Committee to be used for Stop DWI High Visibility Engagement Campaign, formerly known as Crackdown, for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 20th, 2023, and authorizing the execution of all necessary grants and documents by the county executive. I think we have someone here, Mr. Princip. Okay, thank you. I want to chop it up there. All right, thank you. Give us a little info on this.
Sure. So this is my name is Albert Del Principio, the coordinator of the Stop DWI for Rockland County. So this is a grant that is, sorry.
Where mic a little? Where's the mic? At the bottom, it's there.
Is that better? No, it's not. Okay, the green light there.
Thank you.
So yes, so it's Albert Del Principio, the coordinator for Rockland County Stop DWI. So this is the grant that's given that we applied for. It's $28,000. And the grant is to reimburse any overtime that's done by any police agency in Rockland County, including the Rockland County Sheriff's Department and the other 8 law enforcement agencies, to be reimbursed for anything that's done in overtime for enforcement of drug enforcement or anything that deals with impaired driving.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll move it. Second by Legislator Foley and Legislator Soskin. We all want to approve this? Okay. Okay. All right. On the question, all in favor? On the question, Legislator Soskin.
It's a little indirect. You may or may not be able to answer it. I have a big problem, and a lot of people have told me, with the new headlights that are on the cars. Has or would it be within your scope of interest to put out some safety notices regarding the fact that number one, they shouldn't park their cars facing traffic, so it blinds the drivers coming up a street. Number one, and number two, is there something that could be done to dim the lights a little bit? Because they're very blinding when you drive up the street.
Understood. Well, the part of my position obviously is the Stop DWI, but also the Traffic Safety Commission portion of it. So that's not a problem. I have several platforms that I can put information out and also share with departments to share as well. So Facebook, all that platform where we put out a lot of information, our own website. But although that's, that's certainly something I can share. I can pass that along as well.
Okay,
Your
thank you
concerns.
very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, Legislator Paul.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm so keen to know what kind of service you do with the Stop DWI service.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the Stop WI office takes care of just all this in fact, if you'll notice, used to be Crackdown. So Stop WI has kind of evolved. It is solely obviously for impaired driving. It was alcohol, but now it's expanded. So the Stop DWI office is not only just the idea of public enforcement, but also of law enforcement, obviously in that partnership. But we also do community outreach. We have coordinators that go out, or I should say consultants that go out. They're current and retired law enforcement that speak. And then we also do the victim impact panel. I do that once a month for all the candidates that have been convicted of DWI that the courts have signed. So it's a victim impact panel that I conduct. So there's a lot of outreach, there's a lot of enforcement. And in this particular case, the HVEC is about engagement. It's getting people involved.
Thank you. It was really nice. But I was just saying, it's good that you have a education part for the outreach community, the community, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate that. The whole goal is again, the idea of it just being to engage the public, is to make them aware. We're trying to be my office is very reactive as a proactive, we're proactive, we should say. But in cases we need to be reactive. So yes, major component is obviously educating those, young and old alike, but also at the same time, if they trip up and they are convicted, well, they come along to us and they get a little 2-hour refresher and deal with the victims. They speak with those. And the panel is very, very productive. I had one last night, very engaging. People absolutely learn from it.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you once again. Okay. Move, or did the motion on it? All in favor? Okay, all opposed, motion carried. Okay. Motion to adjourn, moved by Legislator Foley, second by Legislator Soskin. All in favor, all opposed, we are now adjourned.
What time is it? 6:09. 6:09, 6:30 for multi. Oh, sorry. It was time to go get chocolate. Yeah, she.
Sponsor. What's his name? Is it on there? Thank you very much.
You have time.
Okay, I'll return it to you afterwards.
What's next, Joe?
Both, great. Thank you.
What's up, dude? You good call?
Yeah.
Okay, that was that. I don't know why. What do I have to do to get the hell stuff? Just get me up. You can talk to me. That way, Phil.
Okay, yourself?
Surprised you did.
Six o'clock. Oh, 6:30, no? Only 4 more minutes for you.
4 more minutes?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's over there.
Okay, please come.
Yeah.
No need that, he is going to sunset.
Okay. Are you there? Who's sitting in the center?
Yeah. 4 minutes, so it can come. Yes, let's go.
Okay.
What's the call for you?
Wait,
Yeah,
where's Leslie?
Leslie will come. Yeah, you come. Tony. Tony. Can go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody said that same thing before. 2 more minutes. No, no, no. So. See what he did? Okay, great. Yeah, great. Okay.
I'm just looking for drainage project here. Okay, I have to find it. Like to call this to order the meeting of the Multi-Service Committee. I really would like to start by thanking all the people who called me during my short stint with the virus recently. I really appreciated it. I'll ask the,
Vice Chair Tonio, Vice Hood, Vice Annie Paul,
Yeah.
Vice Alan Wider. So I'm here. Yeah.
well, he's not in the chamber, so.
Vice Vincent R. Vice McGowan. Najaskin?
Yeah, here.
That's only four, so everything has to be unanimous.
Yes. Yes, I put you on. So we need. See. Alan Wider?
We have a, we have a quorum.
Alan Wider.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, it's Alan Wider is here.
Hmm?
I want to be Alan Wider is here to get a call.
Legislator Rita, please report to the legislative chambers. We need you for a quorum.
Okay, we have four.
Before.
Oh,
Vince.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Four.
okay, you're right. Okay, yeah. You have everybody there?
Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
February.
So now you have Wood
now
now.
we have 5.
So you have it, okay.
Four.
Okay, we have a quorum now, so we'll start.
Yeah, problem.
Yes.
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah. Aaron's on the way.
Okay, we have 2 items. of appointment. I'll read the first one, referral number 8216. Extending the term of Susan L. Herter, DO, as acting commissioner of mental health. I move her nomination, seconded by Legislator Earl, Legislator Paul.
Yeah.
Would everybody like to nominate her? Okay, everyone is unanimous. Dr. Herter, welcome. You want to just tell us very briefly about your accomplishments and what your plans are for the future?
Yes, absolutely.
And speak
It's an
into the mic,
interesting and,
please.
what was that?
Speak into the mic.
Oh, sure. It's an interesting and challenging time to be in mental health. We have a lot of initiatives coming our way, some funding as well, which is exciting. And we're challenged too with a lot of increased need as well as workforce issues. So that's been a really sort of industry-wide challenge. So in the next year, we have some exciting things happening in Rockland. You may know that two agencies, well, one agency with a partner agency here in Rockland received the regional award for an intensive crisis stabilization center. So that will serve people with mental health and substance use disorder concerns. And that will be hopefully happening at the end of next year. And with that, we also have 311, which is the single point of contact plan that will be part of that whole system. So we're really looking to build out our crisis system. And one of the problems in mental health is that there's a big gap between individuals who are not successful getting treatment in an outpatient setting and people who actually meet the requirement for inpatient. So in Rockland, the plan is to really build out what's happening, what's available to people between those two levels, because we have a lot of people, a lot of children going in and out of the emergency room, and we need more options for them. We're also in the department added a forensic position, a position for somebody to coordinate mental health and law enforcement, those two systems, because unfortunately there is a lot of interaction. So that's been happening as well. So lots of things happening.
Anybody have any questions? Legislator Cornell.
Oh, nice to see you. Yeah. So the agency that received the award for our entire region is DATOP, DATOP Samaritan Village, and their partner agency is Achieve Behavioral Health. It's a good partnership.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Legislator Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I see, as you mentioned, during COVID time, you guys had a really challenging time. I see that you guys did work hard, and I really appreciate all that service you did during the COVID time and continuing the great job. Thank you so much, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have just one question. What happens when we have a minor who doesn't seem to respond to the outpatient way of dealing? How do we handle that?
Well, that's a good question. And that I think speaks to the same thing, right? Which is that we need more options for children and adults who are needing more than office-based treatment or clinic-based treatment, and yet don't meet criteria to be in a hospital. So we actually have, there's an adolescent partial hospital program that's starting probably in January, that will be located in the BOCES Riverview High School. So for adolescents, that will be a good option so that they would go, it's a day program. So it's basically school hours. And then there'll be intensive services for them there. And they'll be able to be stabilized. And the idea is to prevent hospitalization or to help kids step down from hospitalization and back into the community.
I see. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Congratulations. You don't have to come down next time for the meeting. The next item is referral number 2321, confirming the appointment of Spencer Chimway. I apologize if I'm not getting it correct, of Stony Point, New York, as Rockland County Commissioner of Human Rights. we just heard about this nomination. I think I spoke to you yesterday. You called me and you introduced yourself. As I told you, I was just getting over the virus. Okay, and I really hadn't picked up my papers. I didn't know too much about you. And I reviewed, I just picked up my papers this evening and I wanted to call you and talk to you privately. Okay, so I don't think we're going to vote this evening, but being you're here and we have almost all of the legislature here. Please tell us about yourself and how you'd fit into the job. Sir,
Oh, thank you so very much, and thank you
please
so
speak into the mic, okay?
thank you so much. And is it on? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the introduction and your availability to listen to me. I have been working with the American Rescue Plan Act Department for a year, trying to help communities navigate the grant writing process. And I'm part of the Human Rights Commission. And how I got on the commission, it is the passion that I have with the social justice issues in the community in Rockland County. And by way of coming to Rockland County, I came through Stony Point Center, where I was part of the program of social justice, where Christians, Jews, and Muslims were working together. So I was very key and an integral part of trying to bring those programs together, and we extended to the rest of Rockland County. The other programs that I have done is from the southern part of Africa, where I was the coordinator of an organization called the Action Support Center. So the Action Support Center is a global organization of individuals and other organizations that work in conflict transformation, trying to engage governments, trying to engage civil society, and try to engage the United Nations in the issues that pertain to conflict and governance. And it is from the Action Support Center side where I was seconded to come to the United Nations and be part of what they were calling the Global Partnership for the Prevention of Armed Conflict. So I was in that space and I engaged at the UN. And within that space of the UN, I also engaged with the organizations within the New York City and New York State at large, like the United African Congress. We tried to deal with issues around domestic violence, gun control, and try to bridge the gap and fill in that gap which was between the community and the elected officials. There was that kind of gap, and I tried to bridge that gap using under the rubric of the United African Congress and other organizations that were in New York City, and worked very closely with the offices of Mayor Michael Bloomberg and tried to take the communities to Albany and discuss issues that ended up coming to the council chambers in New York City that and ended up being issues for discussion. Now, that is just kind of a brief synopsis that I have looking at the international, national, regional, and try to broaden these things in a community-centric fashion. Now, coming to Rockland County, I have been so much excited and intrigued by the passion and the issues that go on in Rockland County, the issues of community. And I've been very humbled to be part of the fabric and engage in a lot of community conversations. And that is what led me to sit on the Human Rights Commission and met very great minds there that have got a very good passion for Rockland County. And it is in that spirit of being a team member that I think that I can partner with everybody, and with your leadership, we can take the human rights of this county to the next level. And I believe that we can also be a gold standard for human rights in the country when these things are done right. And why I say so, because as we all know, New York State is the first state in the country to put up human rights law. So we've never been better positioned like this with your leadership and the passion in the community and the Human Rights Commission. I think I am ready and requesting to be given a chance to skillfully execute my experience and work with everybody to fulfill what is needed in the human rights space. Thank you so much.
If you'll stay up there, is anybody on the on the committee have any questions? Yes, Legislator Hood. Chairman Hood.
Thank you, Legislator Soskin. Just had a few questions for you. Thank you for coming today and speaking with us. First is we'd like to know your involvement within the community in which you live. And some of the groups that you've joined or associations you've been dealing with since you have been in Rockland County.
Thank you so much. Not far from where I live, there is an organization that has got an office there as Proyecto Faro. They discuss issues of immigration. I am involved and I follow what they do. I have attended meetings with the Coalition to Stop New Jim Crow, being part of those conversations and see what they are trying to do. There's also a broader immigration coalition in Rockland County that I have participated in these meetings and try to contribute to what they do. When I was at Stony Point Center, I engaged with an organization called Jewish Voices for Peace. I really learned a lot about what they are trying to do and how they are trying to engage. And I was part of that conversation with people like Joyce Bressler. And I am still paying attention to those forums. So those are some of them, just to mention but a few, that I am actively involved, even now. And then the other one, and the biggest one, this is also, it has also refined me. I am part of Leadership Rockland. If there is an organization that has refined me to visit every facet of the community, it was Leadership Rockland. I was a member of the Leadership Rockland class of 2014. And my passion led to, at the end of, those that have been graduates of Leadership Rockland, you become elected to be on the board. You kind of express your interest. When I expressed my interest, I was elected to sit on the leadership board, the Leadership Rockland board, and I was doing it for a year. So that was the time I was working in Albany as a Senate fellow. So once a month for the whole year, I used to come back to commute, to come to Leadership Rockland. That's a very good organization that is very key to other organizations that I engage in. Well, I cannot fail to mention the yearly meetings and that I participate within the NAACP that are held in Pure River Hilton. I met great leaders like the Honorable Tony L. and the Honorable Mr. Wilbur, Mr. Willie Trapman. I looked forward to these people's leadership from the way they set the tone for the community. I said, this is something that I need to be part of. So if I were to answer your question, Honorable, those are some of the organizations that I have mentioned, and I still have the burning passion to engage them further within the rubric of human rights. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you for that. Next was, besides you being on the commission for, how long you been on the Human Rights Commission?
Since February.
February, okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there any other involvement with civil rights, human rights within the county? Like, was there a cause you took up or issue you fought for? Anything that you can, tell us about?
So there was an organization, it's a Syria club where it started like Stony Point 55, where we started within the rubric of environmental justice. I sat with that group and I was involved in the planning process. And one funny thing, what we did, we went on the Hudson and took on their, got on the water. The idea was to reach out to the community and sensitize them about the environmental issues that may concern us. It got the Governor Como then issue a statement about what we had done there. It was River Keeper, yes, River Keeper. So yes, I have been in those conversations, and we have produced and engaged the Governor Como, and it's all there on record. You can just look up Stony Point 55, the people that started that environmental justice initiative. I was among the first people, and it was kind of proximity. I was at the Stony Point Center, and then we called the community and started that. That's just one of the initiatives, and I can mention another one if you wanted.
Okay. You said there's another one? Sure. Was there another one?
Yeah. There is an initiative that started when they said the Ban the Box campaign here in Stony Point, where if someone is applying for a job, then you have to indicate what your criminal record is. It was called the Ban the Box campaign. So no, in the spirit of equality, you don't have, someone's background should not prevent him or her from getting a job. I was in that kind of conversation in the Ban the Box campaign. So that's another one, and it is still going. It was a very good deliverable, mixed feelings, and people had to speak out, but just trying to bring the process together so that you get the message out, because that's one of the things. You package the process so that it is heard to the other side of the press spectrum, to the policy making spectrum, so that it is clear. Yes, I was in that kind of process. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Sure. One more question.
Yes, sir.
Have you had any formal civil rights training in civil right conflict resolution?
Yes, so much. So I'll layer it in a lot of ways. So in South Africa, there is a program called Advanced Conflict Transformation. It is a 5-week course that brings people from around the world with a lot of sponsors. So I was that process, and actually we produced 2 books that are used worldwide. You can look them up. One is called Conflict Transformation, then the other one is called Working with Conflict. In fact, Working with Conflict, it is even being used by Columbia Teachers College, Working with Conflict too. It was produced by the organization that trained me in conflict transformation. That is the first one. Then the second one, there is Alternatives to Violence Training, AVP USA, which I was trained here with all the credentials. It is a 3-part series where I used to go to Albany, and I was trained to the applicable part of it, where you need to be a facilitator, a moderator. What that means is that if we are having a conversation and we want to reach to a very good end, there's a way you drive the group process to have a shared understanding, to have a conflict-free understanding, and everyone should have a stake in what we are talking about. So that I have heard. And the courses that I have done actually at my master's level in public policy, there are issues that are conflict-driven, which I think that also shaped my understanding of conflict transformation. So, and also I'm a doctoral candidate of law and policy with Northeastern University. So, addressing issues like conflict in those forums, it's quite indispensable to actually creating a substance or a product that can be beneficial to the community. That's why I make myself available to partner with the community, adding to the great work that you have done as leaders and the community has done, to be part of the process. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, thank you for all that information. And we'll be discussing it, at least within our caucus, and we'll be able to make a decision in the near future. Okay?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Legislator Weeder wanted to speak.
Yes, I don't have any questions, but I've looked at your resume even before you've provided your presentation and the answers you've given.
Thank you.
And there's actually, the first thing that captured my attention was the references. And the third reference says Dr. Francis Pratt, and I was like, okay, that's enough. For me, that's enough. That's enough for me. That has all my questions answered. And I've known Dr. Pratt for all these years, and her stamp of approval is everything one needs, especially for a job like this. Then I looked at, in particular, the things that you were involved between the Action Support Center, you know, United African Congress,
Yes, sir.
and all these things. For me, those answered everything I was looking at. Then we had a conversation. You called me the other day.
Yes, sir.
But I understand that the chair would like to, you know, formally go through the internal conversations. So this might just be part of the process. But I wanted to thank you for coming here tonight, and I appreciate your interest in this. And tonight I can say your passion. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you so much, sir.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, Legislator Yeager, and then Legislator Paul. And then we're gonna have to draw this to a close.
I'll yield to Legislator Paul, to Vice Chairwoman Paul.
Oh.
And then I'll go afterwards.
Thank you. You know, after going through his information and answering all the questions, and I see it's very impressive and really, and also I see our Dr. Francis Pratt there sitting, and great supporter of the community events and person who is interested in serving the community or serving the people. And I see that it's a good support over there, and really appreciate all are ready to serve the community. Thank you.
Welcome, man.
Legislator Yeager?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We, the United States, when I say we, and Rockland County is no exception, has a very, very serious issue with housing in this country. I read a report some 6 months ago that suggested that there's an estimated deficit of 2.2 million housing units in the United States, meaning that we have 2.2 million units less than we need in order to house the people who live in this country. The way it manifests itself in Rockland County is that there are plenty of houses that contain 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 families in them because there's not enough housing that they can afford. And so you'll find high ranches that are supposed to be in single family zones, many of them, that have multiple families in them. And there's a lot of agitation in those communities to remove the extra families because it's a single family zone or it's a 2-family zone. And there are all these people living in these houses. I don't know that housing is a human right. I think that there's a lot of agitation and a lot of people who feel that way. I mean, it sure sounds like if we're talking about human rights, I think maybe the right to have a roof over your head might be more important than even the right to free speech. But maybe the issue is debatable. I'd like to hear your thoughts, if you have thought about these issues, specifically as they relate to Rockland County and what we can do to help people get the housing that they need and deserve as human beings. And after that, I may have a follow-up question, but I'd like you to answer that if I may.
Thank you so much, sir, for that question. If I hear you correctly, you want to hear from me about the housing issue in Rockland County. I want to recognize that Rockland County is doing a very good job in housing with other departments that are also focusing on housing. But when we come to the issue of human rights, our mandate is to focus on housing discrimination. So that's what, if there is an issue on housing discrimination, and that is well established with all the discussants in the problem at hand, that is what comes to our office. It is to address housing discrimination. And that is where I would focus. If there are other issues where you say people are living like 6 units, they are overcrowded and other things, there are things that may not be within our purview or within our jurisdiction. And the purpose of the Human Rights Commission in this regard is to establish a need, is to establish a reason why we are engaging in that. But everything that has got to do with discrimination, we are going to collectively discuss and see how we can chart the way forward. That's my thinking for now.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
What I was really asking for, and it's my fault perhaps in the way I asked the questions, and I'm not faulting the way you answered, is what is your feeling about the right of people to have the proper housing for themselves? And what I mean by that is zoning is called exclusionary zoning for a reason. It's because it excludes. And when you have large swaths of places like Rockland County having single-family zones, where you can only build a one-family house on a large lot, by necessity, you cannot build affordable housing there. So what needs to happen is that it seems to me that you need places where people can build, where it is economically viable to build housing for people who have lower incomes. I'd like to hear your feeling in general about, and maybe it's not part of the job, I understand.
Okay.
But at some point, because a huge percentage of poor people in New York State are people of color, are minorities, right? We can't look away from that fact. And so, yes, you can have a law that is facially neutral, right? We want single-family homes on large lots. But in reality, they're discriminatory because poor people can't afford those homes, and a large majority of poor people in New York State and perhaps in Rockland are minorities, are Blacks, are Latinos. And so I think it's something that we need to talk about, and that's why I'm asking you about it, for your take on that issue.
I appreciate, sir, and part of the answer that you've just given is something that we need to talk about. And if you ask me how I feel about it, I strongly feel that the people have got answers, and we need to facilitate that dialogue with the people and see what their needs are. 2007, I had a forum with Len and Libby. It was a forum where they were discussing the community issues. They had a program called Living Room Dialogue. So we did it at Adam Clayton Powell building in Harlem. So they said this statement, which I want to apply to your question about what I feel. They opened this forum by saying, an enemy is someone whose story you have not heard. An enemy is someone whose story you have not heard. There are so many stories that we have not heard and where we have not provided intention to for them to inform our answers. So if I had to put on my public hat, I'll say there's a way we need to translate practice into policy. People have got answers. Let's engage them and let's identify what their needs are and let's discuss and bring it to the leadership and see how we can move forward. So the shorthand of it is to say, let's get to the people, the people we have mentioned, and I feel they've got answers that can inform our process. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing else.
Okay. Anybody else? Legislator Earl. About Legislator Cornell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a question. This is more just a response. Thank you for coming in, Mr.
Thank you so much, my leader.
Chirabe.
Thank you.
I hope I pronounced
Yes, you did.
that somewhat.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah, very impressive resume, and you're handling yourself very well tonight.
Yeah.
I look forward to discussing you further in caucus. I have to admit, tonight was the first time that I actually viewed your resume. It was very, very impressive. And I also saw you got a reference from a good friend of mine, Dr. Frances Pratt. And she wrote a letter for you, I think, or something. Good luck. From what I've seen so far, I think you're qualified. And we'll see where it goes. Good luck.
Thank you so much, sir.
Legislator Cornell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not that I have any special question at this point. I want to thank you for coming in and talking to us. I'm not on the committee, so I have not seen your resume, but I assume that you have given your resume to both the county executive and to the committee. And so I look forward to learning more about you and wish you good luck.
I'm looking forward to your leadership too. Thank you so much.
Okay. Sir, thank you so much for coming down. The committee will be holding, well, actually, there'll be a caucus coming up before the next meeting. And we'll discuss what you discussed. Okay, and I wish you good luck. You're a very qualified gentleman. You have a tremendous resume. You've been all over the world. Okay, and Rockland County is just a small little place. I think it's the smallest county in the state of New York. Okay. So good luck to you, and we'll let you know. Again, thank you for coming down. We really appreciate it. It was an education listening to you.
Thank you so much.
We didn't move it, so you can just go on.
Yeah, no, we didn't move it. Yeah. Okay, and we'll defer this till the next meeting.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. Referral number 308378, approving the acceptance of a grant from the New York State Department of Health to the Rockland County Department of Health for 2021 through 2026 Childhood Lead Poisoning Prevention Program in the amount of $1,933,000, no county tax dollars, for the period from October 21 through September 30th, 26. I'll move it. Seconded by Legislator Pearl. Okay. I think it's self-explanatory, but if someone's here from the Department of Health, you can come up and just very briefly tell us something. Welcome.
And I can explain number 5, the $300,000 increase from 2018.
2000.
Number 5 from 2018.
Yeah.
Did you want to explain?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Laura Gates. I'm the supervising nurse practitioner for Department of Health, Public Health. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the childhood lead poisoning prevention program that we participate in the Department of Health. And this is to talk about the grant. And so what we do is we work as a team where the inspectors and the nurse go to the homes of a child that's been identified, has been having had an considered elevated lead level in her blood. So we visit the home and we inspect the home to identify where the source might be for the lead. And usually lead poisoning tends to be in homes that are built before 1978, when the paint has lead in it. And so what we do is to kind of when the paint is chipping, that might be, and there's a child that lives in that home, that might be how they get poisoned by the lead. So when they get identified, like I said, the team from the Department of Health would go to the home to inspect, and also the nurses would be educating the family in terms of how to prevent lead poisoning by providing nutritional information that would help prevent absorption of the lead into their blood. So
Thank you.
that's what we do, and it's important for the lead prevention program because it affects the child neurologically. What that means that it may prevent them from being able to learn when they become school age, and also they will prevent them from thinking clearly and be more forgetful. And it's a very dangerous thing to have an elevated blood level. So this is what we do for the public to protect the children.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Referral number 8894A, approving an amendment to the agreement in excess of $100,000 with a Starting Place Incorporated to provide special education services in the preschool program in the additional amount of $1 million for a new total amount not to exceed $5,850,000 for the period July 1, 21 through June 30th, 22. Okay, I'm assuming that it's an increase.
Yes, it is.
Okay, right.
So the starting
I think it's
place,
self-explanatory. Okay,
Correct.
all in favor? Anybody opposed?
You didn't move it.
Oh, okay, moved by legislator
Oh,
Paul, seconded by legislator Weeder. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Now we're up to number 5.
explain this one if you want. This one was a complicated one.
Okay, referral number 8894B, approving an amendment to the agreement in excess of $100,000 with Juanio Incorporated to provide preschool center-based SEIT programs for children with disabilities in the additional amount of $300,000 for a total amount not to exceed $4,091,000 for the period from July 1, 18 through June 30th, 19. Okay, I'll move it, seconded by legislator Tyre. The only question I see here is dating. How come we're going back so far?
yes, with regards to New York State education and tuition rates, there's something called, you can reconcile a tuition rate, and the rate can be reconciled for up to 3 years after the services have been provided based upon the consolidated fiscal reports.
I see.
And
Yes, okay, our attorney with,
Chair Soskin, I had a long meeting on Thursday with
the law department, and we got on the phone Tracy and Ashley from the Department of Health, and we got Mike Drummond on from Finance, because this was not understood by anybody why we were amending this. It was explained that with the Department of Health, like we said, that these retroactive rate increases or decreases can occasionally happen, that normally with a lot of these contracts, they build in a buffer to allow for these retroactive increases, that they'll be able to do it. Now, 3 years later, the 2018, 2019 budget's obviously closed. We cannot go back and amend the budget like we would do in other cases. We have the money in the 2020-22 budget. So that's why this caught everybody's eye, this 2018-19, but that's why they have to do it this way. And that's why we put into the resolution, we added the whereas relating to the fact that these were retroactive increases that could not be, the 18 and 19 budgets could obviously not be reopened. So that's why we're doing it, and we have the money for it here.
Okay, therefore, based on that and your comments, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. I think we're up to number 6. Number 6, 8894C, approving an amendment to the agreement in excess of $100,000 with Children's Home LMSW, OTPT Psychology and Speech Therapy Services, PLLC, to provide preschool-related services for children with disabilities in the additional amount of $125,000 for a new amount not to exceed $375,000 for the period from July 1 through June 30th, through June of 2022. I'll move it, seconded by Legislator Hood. And who? And Legislator Earl. Okay, I think this falls into the same category. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Referral number 8983, approving exercising the third extension and third amendment to an agreement next of $100,000, the additional amount of $99,500 with a new total amount not to exceed $347,800 under RFPRC 2019-027 with Mental Health Association of Rockland County Incorporated to administer the Family Supervisor Court Visitation Program for the period from January 20 through December 31, 23. I'll move it, seconded by Legislator Hall. You want to just briefly tell us about this?
Sure, Legislator Soskin. This is a mandated program by the state of New York and the court that the county has to provide these supervised visitation services as ordered by the family court. So we have this contract in place, and this is just renewing the contract.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Paul. And we have one more for you. 9535A, authorizing the County of Rockland Director of the Office of Buildings and Codes on behalf of the Village of Spring Valley, New York, to allow third-party plan review and inspection of residential and commercial buildings for compliance with the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State. I'll move it. Seconded by Legislator Weeder. On the question, you want to, this is expanding the authority.
This is the second resolution in relation to a grant that we applied for and got from NYSERDA a couple weeks ago. You approved the resolution for the grant that provides up to $50,000 reimbursement for code enforcement using third-party inspectors, as well as up to $75,000 for a new software platform. So NYSERDA requires this additional resolution. Currently, the Office of Building and Codes uses one company, which is ICC, to assist with building plan review. And we will be contracting with a second company. And this resolution is required by NYSERDA. Mr. Markounis is here from Buildings and Codes if you have any questions for him.
we, this is, the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State, is that something new?
Well, as part of, Mr. Markounis may be able to answer that a little bit better, but that's part of the building plan review process.
Listen to this, Council.
It's part of the building plan review process for new construction to reduce greenhouse gases, to make buildings more energy efficient in regard to LED lighting, special types of roofing, insulation. So it's a benefit for the community and the environment. And it will be a third-party review ensuring that they are adhering to the codes of New York State.
Who's the third party that's going to be reviewing this?
That will be, right?
So we're currently using ICC, which is International Codes Council, and we're also be contracting with a company called Safe Built that provides these services. Those are the two largest firms in the country that provide these services.
Okay, and this is just for new construction, or it's going back to renovate?
Also, they go to renovation, if necessary, if it was included within the plan.
I see, because how can we do this at this time of the year? With inflation out there, and on top of it, the problems with getting materials for building. I mean, is this the time for something like this?
It's actually, it's a benefit to the builder because it's more cost efficient in regards to heating and energy conservation.
I can see that for the new builder, but how about if it's for a new builder, isn't that part of the code, building code?
It's part of the energy conservation code.
Code, right. But for an existing property, it's a renovation job. It can be a tremendous difficult, especially for small homeowners.
If they choose to go in that direction, if it's included in their plan and they're going to use the energy conservation code to save those additional heating bills or cooling bills and make the house more or the extension more energy efficient,
Then I'll ask you,
they would choose that.
is this therefore then optional or required?
On new construction, it's required depending on what you're building.
Okay, and then old construction, existing housing?
No, but it's a benefit.
I know it's a benefit.
Okay.
But in other words, isn't this creating a tremendous problem for existing small homeowners?
No, not at all.
Okay, okay, Leonard, Legislator Weeder, you can add anything?
So, Director Markounis, I'm just trying to understand. This is, what we're passing today is what? We're passing today to allow ICC to review.
This is a secondary resolution that is needed for NYSERDA. We already adopted and accepted the grant funding, and this is a required resolution just for NYSERDA.
I understand that, but what is this going to do? This is going to allow the county
to use additional funding through the grant for third-party review and inspection services.
But what does it have to do with the energy efficient?
The energy code is one of the codes that we enforce and builders use to build new construction.
But the energy efficient was something that was enforced even prior to the county taking it over.
Correct, yes.
Correct.
Oh, okay, so
This is just so we can get money back from the grant.
okay, and it's not just the village that has to comply with the energy efficient. It's
New York State.
New York State.
Throughout New York State.
So all this, what we're doing today is to allow the county to use the funds.
Right.
Yes.
So, and we already accepted the funds.
Yes.
And we already have ICC doing the reviews.
Yes.
Okay, so there's nothing new that we're adding today, other than to allow the county to use the money.
Right.
So, Mr. Chair, I think we shouldn't have a problem with this.
Yeah, okay, that's the situation. Okay, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
That completes the agenda of the Multi-Service Committee. I apologize for the length, but we had no choice. We had many serious things. Legislator Weider?
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Legislator Earl. The meeting is adjourned.
I mean, you're up.
No, something to give.
Yeah, and but Timmy, don't close. There's a joint BNFP and PPW. I don't know what to tell you.
You're in. Oh, wow. The Planning and Public Works Committee is honored by the attendance of the people who just walked into the room. Good evening, everyone. It's the Planning and Public Works meeting for tonight, whatever tonight's date is, on November 9th. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay. Legislator Carey. Legislator Paul.
Here.
Legislator Wolf. Legislator Weider.
I'm his spokesman. He's here.
Legislator Grant. And Chairman Yeager.
Is here.
Okay.
We have minutes to adopt from 10:25. I'll move seconded by Legislator Carey. Are there any deletions, additions, insertions, whatever other shins we have? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried unanimously. We have two items on the agenda. One was already discussed, it sounded like, in the last meeting, multi-services. And one is the proposed increase in cost for the sewer district number 1 for a project that was first proposed many, many, many years ago and now needs to be done, and it's at a far greater cost. It's gone from 10 to $21 million. It was already discussed at some point. Who's here on that? So could you just very, very, very briefly for the members of the legislature present, including those on and off the committee, just describe what's happened to this project and why it's gone to a little more than double the cost?
Sure, the main. The main reason for the cost increases is we added some additional work and there's some supply chain issues where costs have gone up. Part of the additional work that we're doing is we're replacing the air lease and clean out chambers on the force main since we have to pay for the bypass pumping anyway. So we can save some money down the road if we do the bypass pumping now when we have to bypass the stations. And that's one of the main reasons, plus the cost increase for supply chain issues. Ductile line pipe's gone up like 25% since the cost estimates were done.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this before I move and second both items? I don't see any. Anybody off the committee? Anybody? Anybody at all? Okay, good. And the second issue was the one that Legislator Soskin did in his committee already, which was authorizing a third-party plan for review and inspection of residential and commercial buildings for compliance with the Energy Conservation Construction Code of New York State. That's been discussed to my satisfaction. Are there any members of my committee that have any questions about it? Any other members of the legislature want to ask any further questions? Seeing none, I will move both of those items, seconded by Legislator Carey. On the questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried unanimously. Yes, I believe we did. And we are not adjourning only because we have a joint meeting. So I will turn the microphone over to the chairman, the very, very able chairman of Budget and Finance Committee. So we'd like to open up the meeting of the Joint Planning and Public Works Committee and call for order, and we'll ask the clerk to do the roll call for the members of the Budget and Finance Committee.
Legislator Jobson. Legislator Hofstad.
Present.
Legislator Yeager.
Here.
Legislator Saskia.
Here.
Legislator Hood.
Here.
Legislator Earl. Legislator Cornell.
Here.
Second Vice Legislator Wolf. Vice Chair Legislator Grant. Chairman Legislator Rita.
I'm here. Okay, so we have, everyone should have in front of them the schedules. Okay. Okay, we'll do the adoption of the minutes of the last joint meeting, which was March. Moved by Legislator Hofstein, seconded by Legislator Yeager. Any discussion? Seeing as there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. We're on to referral number 9541, which is a discussion item for the proposed capital projects within in the new budget. I'll ask everyone to turn their attention to the schedules that was handed out before, and then I'll ask Nicole to do a very brief synopsis, and once we'll finish, the 3 pages, basically 3 topics. As soon as we're done with each individual page, we'll open it up for questions if there will be any. So, Nicole? So we'll start with the cancel and close projects, which is pretty simple.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So you should have the long legal-sized charts that were done horizontally. We're going to start with all of the projects that were completed this year that are slated to be closed. And then what happens is any of the remaining funds, that's money that was not spent on the project, goes back to what we call debt service. Because specifically, when you borrow money for a specific project, it can only be spent on that project. So any money that is left unspent goes back to the debt service. So what we are doing this evening is taking a look at the closure of $37.6 million worth of projects. And we will be returning $8.7 million to debt service because that is the money that remained unspent. Second chart gives a summary of all the projects for which the proposed budget is seeking additional funding. So on the county level, there's $15.4 million of additional funding. 9.6 of it will come from our capital borrowing, and another 5.6 million will come from state and federal reimbursements, specifically in the area of public transportation and in the highway department, and also for our Rockland Community College, where we get money from the state dormitory authority, which gives us 50% of the cost of any of the capital improvements that are done to the college. And then in the sewer district, which is a separate taxing authority, they're seeking $15.9 million worth of additional funding. And that comes from our state revolving funds. And finally, the last chart is a summary of those recommended new projects that are in the proposed 2023 capital projects budget. We have a total of $8.8 million worth of new projects. Most of them are within the Department of Transportation for the purchase of various buses. And we have people here from the Transportation Department who can explain further on these specific projects, should you have any questions. And again, the purchase of those buses
comes from state, federal, and MTA funds. So there's no county tax dollars that are spent on these projects. We simply borrow the money, and once we actually make these purchases, we get reimbursed from the state and the federal government. The Highway Department has one new project, Snake Hill Road Bridge Rehabilitation for 1.3. And then RCC has 3 projects, which I believe were discussed earlier this year in August when we looked at the RCC budget. And finally, the Sewer Department is looking at 3 new projects, one of which is $20 million, which is the Interceptor Improvement Phase 2 project. And again, I believe there is somebody here from the Sewer Department to answer any questions you may have on those projects. So that's a total of $26.7 million together with the county piece. What we're looking at in total is increasing the capital projects budget by $38.6 million. Also attached is a summary just to kind of put it all together. So on the county level, again, $28.25 million worth of closures, in other words, projects that have been completed, $15.3 million in additional funds, 11.9 in new projects. So the net on the county portion is actually a negative $990,000 to the total capital projects budget. And then for the Sewer Department, again, $9.4 million in closures, 15.9 in additional funds, 26.7 in new projects for a total of $33.2 million. Mike Drummond in the Finance Department is a tremendous help. He actually reached out to all of the departments that have projects listed in these charts so that they are here tonight, so that they'll be able to answer any of your questions. I also want to just very quickly call your attention to the yellow covered booklet that was placed in your inboxes this week. And within these pages are full descriptions of every single project that's listed here, which may be helpful to you as well. So that's what I have, Mr. Chair. And so I'm going to turn it back to you so you can get your questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Very good and brief synopsis on all of this. So on the first page, the number that seems a little bit out of whack is the debt services returned a total of 8.6, almost $8.7 million. But if you look at what is bringing it up so high is on one project, which is the animal shelter facility that was supposed to be constructed. And given that it has taken a different course of action, and this is going to be resolved amongst the towns themselves. So now all of a sudden you have $6.3 million that we got to return. A certain amount of money was spent, I believe, for engineering, right? So that would that there will be the cost of the county, but beyond that, that is the amount of money that is being returned. The only other number that you're looking at is the sewer, the weather inflow identification. I'm just curious to know why is someone here from sewer that can tell us what was the $1.3 million that was initially borrowed? Is there any?
Yeah.
6250.
Yeah, originally, we had to do a wet weather inflow to remove rainwater coming into the system during rain events. And the number was estimated for the amount of repairs that was going to have to be done. And the repair costs came under that amount, but the money had already been borrowed.
So a repair project that, at the time of the estimate looked a little bit different than it ended up being.
Correct.
Okay, so between those two projects, that's where you get almost the lion's share of that amount, of the amount that is being returned to debt services. Any questions by legislators?
Yes.
Yes,
Mr. Soskin first.
Legislator Soskin.
I'd like to speak to someone from the Drainage Agency.
Drainage.
I'm out of order. I couldn't hear that last.
But if I may ask, can we just first focus on the first page, which is the
Talking about the usual project that I've been speaking about for 18 years. Project number 7105, Lake Suzanne.
so Legislator Soskin and Legislator Grant. I would like to keep it on the topic. We'll come back to this, but I would like to go through first the three charts that we worked on, and then we'll open it up to other questions. Can we do that, Legislator Soskin?
What?
Are we okay with that? Can we?
Yeah, as long as I get to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Legislator Grant, there's questions that you have on?
But, no, mine's a general question.
Okay, so let's move on to the next chart, which is the additional funding. And again, this is just funding that we're putting into the new capital improvement projects, but they're still gonna have to come back to the legislature for bonds, correct? Well, they're still gonna have to come back for the bonds for this?
Well, we haven't bonded it yet.
But this, so the second chart are the amounts of money that is being put into the budget to increase certain projects. But it's not bonded yet, so they'll have to come back to the legislature. In other words, we will have an opportunity as a body to ask the questions. So if anyone has any questions on these, we can ask. These are all the projects that have been, have a current cost estimate, and somehow there's additional amounts that have been increased. Again, it doesn't look anything that is out of the ordinary. The one thing that comes to mind is the county courthouse roof. Original estimate was $1 million. And they're now looking for an additional of $2 million. Is there anyone that could speak to that? What happened exactly? Facilities, or maybe? No? What was it? The courthouse roof. The original estimate was $1 million, and they're now looking at to increase it with an additional of $2 million for that project. Yeah, we're streaming live, so anyone that speaks should, because we're streaming. But on YouTube wants to see your face.
The project's been on, in the program for some time. That was an initial estimate back then. Since then, the roofs themselves have increased. We've increased the need to replace the new courthouse roof, being it's 20 years old, and the warranty is actually expiring. And we've had numerous leaks on that roof. So we had to increase the cost, and with the cost of materials and everything today, that's our best estimate at this time.
So that's basically where we are with all these other projects. It's the increase of the cost of the original estimates at that time. The only reason I pointed out the county courthouse roof, because they started out with $1 million, and now we're asking for an additional $2 million. So, but other than that, I think it's more or less,
The additional money is due to increased costs, and the project itself needs some more money in it just to perform it.
Anyone has any questions on this second chart? No? No questions. Which boils us down to the final one, which I think that's where the people have the questions. Our legislators have questions. These are the new projects. So the new projects we're looking at mostly is in the transportation department, which are purchasing of 12 new buses. And these are pretty expensive buses. 10 new buses, correct? We're looking for the purchase of 10 new buses. And almost all of it, no, all of it is reimbursed by federal funds, state and federal funds. And then the only other big item is the interceptor from sewer, which is $20 million. Okay, so Legislator Soskin.
I'd like to speak to someone from the drainage agency. Our annual conversation.
Oh, that's good.
My question this year is regarding project 7105. Lake Suzanne, town of Ramapo, dredge and deepen a lake. Okay. It's been around for a long time. I had the excuse that the federal government had to get involved for their permission, and that was overruled by the next administration, and it may be back and forth again. I'm not sure what the Biden administration has done. But my question to you now, it was $5 million 18 years ago. Okay, I don't know what it's going to be now, but I think it's going to be more. Is there any legal restrictions on this property to prevent the movement or the starting and the stopping of the property? I should say starting constructing on this property.
Well, I would say that you'd have to get if I'm understanding, you'd have to get a permit from the DEC at the Army Corps of Engineers to remove the sediment, which I believe you want removed.
Okay, that came and that went.
Well, we worked on the dam, as you know, in conjunction with the town.
It's not completed yet, The dam is not completed. That whole area back there.
Well, the dam is completed.
Okay.
Well, my point being that, we worked on the dam jointly because the town owns the property, but the county had worked on the dam in the past, so we're both co-owners, so we just shared the project. We took the lead, but we're splitting the cost. And then the county agreed, because we wanted to lower the dam really, because it provides no flood storage. But the town wanted to keep, the lake because of the local residents as high as it was, so we agreed to keep the dam up. So we made that the design. I don't know if you remember, but earlier on, it was a while ago, there was talk about lowering the dam significantly, but we didn't do that. And then we had meetings, with constituents afterwards, and there was talk of different projects. It's my understanding, and there was public outreaches with the town. It's my understanding that town engineers at least did a thumbnail cost estimate of removing all the spoils, the dredge spoils that would be removed on a minimal estimate. And it was just several $1 million. And, there was no movement forward on that. And that, where you're going back in those arms behind the island or on the side of the island, it's away from the dam. It's not near our jurisdiction. The town owns the land. And, it just was way beyond our scope at that point. And the town sort of examined it. And, to my knowledge, they had their cost estimate and there's no further movement in that regard.
From what I understand, that there are bondholders involved here, and there's some sort of a restrictive covenant on this to prevent the building. True or false, I don't know. Okay,
I have no knowledge of that.
Different people, okay? We wanted to build a park there, and you see children there all the time.
Well, there is going to be a feature built, or at least we're working towards that. There's a project out to bid now to build a boardwalk out over the water. That's what the community seemed to want.
Well, there's a lake, okay, and there's a stream that comes down from the mountains.
Pascat Brook.
Okay, and goes through a lot of, under the Blueberry Hill houses, Ralph Boulevard,
Yeah.
or the Suzanne Drive, and you have one bridge. Okay, and then you have an area roughly the size, twice the size of these two chambers. And then you have another bridge. Bridge number 2 is the one that leads to the major lake,
Uh-huh.
okay, and the dam. Bridge number 1 was a narrow stream. And we had hurricanes there, and there were down branches there, and there were rats there, and other types of vermin. And there's no reason that I can see why we can't get that done. That was supposed to be part of the other project. The other project is almost finished. We
Well,
both were
on
there.
our end, we increased the height of the dam so that the water would be higher and then cover a greater surface area behind the dam.
It's not flowing at all.
And the town looked at the cost of removing the sediment on its land further upstream outside of our jurisdiction. And I think that there was a decision not to do it because it would be several millions of dollars even for a limited scope project. That's my understanding.
Because here we're talking 1 million, 5 million, another 5 million.
Well, if you remove dredge spoils in New York, they're treated as they're treated as waste in New York. But they're not in Pennsylvania, but then you're shipping it to Pennsylvania, and that's if you test it and it comes back negative. So it's expensive. It's expensive because of how the soil is treated.
It's just not fair. Okay, and I know the law is not necessarily fair. I'm well aware of that. I've been around a year or two. Okay? But there's got to be some movement. If you're telling me decisively in a public situation that the county doesn't own any part of that, it's only the town, I'll pursue the town. But I was never told that. I was told it was a joint project and you've got the federal government involved. Okay? And at one point, they put rocks and screening on both sides of the first bridge. Okay? Then they went ahead and they took stones to reinforce the second part of the lake, the big lake near the dam. Can't understand why they would leave that one. There's got to be some reason. If it's just money, all this money is coming in from the federal government. Okay? The town is supposed to get $31,500,000 over 2 years. I don't know what they've gotten, but I don't know how much has come to Ramapo.
It's beyond me.
So there's money there. Our county budget shows a nice surplus. So it can't be there. But where is it? And I'd like to charge the Drainage Agency and the Department of Transportation and Highways of the county, okay, to find out for me what's holding it, what's the real reason that's holding it back. I'd like to get it in writing, if we can make that an action item, Mr. Chairman.
So the action item would be to put in writing by someone from the county executive's office or drainage, why the county is not dredging the lake? Is that the action item?
It's project number 7105. Okay.
The action item is you wanted a written explanation for why County Project 7105 is not proceeding?
That's right. After, add a comment after 18 years.
Okay,
71?
7105.
7105.
Mr. Chair. Wait, just 1 second. So Director Altieri, in simple terms, why isn't 7105 taking off? Why is the
I
lake?
think we had it under, we spoke with the town about dredging. It was decided that it was not going to happen. They own the land.
Right.
It's beyond our jurisdiction. We don't regulate there. So there's really, at that point, there's no county project. We completed working on the dam. That's complete.
So the question is, at some point, leaving the project on paper is going to have Ms. Legislator Soskin keep on asking every year about this project. So it's here. And I understand because I got to say, Legislator Soskin, I was with the director. We discussed about using the ARPA money for something that is going to be done at the lake. Something very nice, actually, and it's already in the process. My understanding is in the process.
The residents seemed keen on it.
Yes, and the residents were very happy about what was going to be done with the ARPA money in enhancing the lake. And the question was raised by people.
There was discussion on it.
And the entire conversation was about dredging the lake. And the answer that was provided is pretty much the same that Mr. Altieri has been saying tonight, which was that the county has jurisdiction on the passage of the water and all of that.
Up to the dam, but not beyond.
Exactly, but the entire property that the lake sits on is owned by the town. And the town has responsibilities.
And we did keep the level of the dam higher. So, because if it was lower, then naturally the lake would be even smaller.
But to Legislator Soskin's concern, there is a project on the books, and Legislator Soskin would like to see that project done. And if the answer is that the county, since the lake is owned, the property is owned by the town, and the town has responsibilities, then it's either off. It either would take it off the book or we do the job.
Yeah.
And I think that Legislator Soskin's question is more to why isn't the county doing the job rather than remove it from the books. I know there was conversation about the lake being dredged a long time ago, and that's something the county has done it or the town?
I would think the town, because, I mean, I know from the drainage agency perspective, there's no real flood storage benefit to having that. So the dam just becomes like a risk, a liability, and a maintenance nightmare. So in a sense, it'd be nicer to have a smaller dam because there's less risk going forward, less maintenance. So it probably certainly didn't originate with me, but I mean.
No, I'm talking about the lake was dredged like 30 or 40 years ago.
Oh, well, interestingly, not only did I know, but even the drainage agency, there was no institutional knowledge that the town apparently had dredged the lake like 30 years ago or something.
So it was the town that did it.
And I only learned about it because I was told this at the public outreach because there was town officials there and they started talking about it. But then nobody in the highway department or the drainage agency even knew this.
So if people.
The regulatory schemes have changed a lot in 30 years.
Okay, so it was dredged, but apparently not by the county as much as you're aware of.
From what I heard, yes.
And if it was done by the town.
From what I heard, yes.
Okay, so we have an action item, which is going to be an explanation of if this project is on the books, literally, it is on the book, it is in the books, why isn't the county proceeding with it? And someone, either from drainage or the county executive will respond. Steve, are we covered with this action item?
If I can get an answer on official stationery.
Right.
So that I can pursue the matter.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to be around forever. Okay, I'd like to.
I think you. I tend to disagree.
Before I'm gone,
Longer than me.
Legislator Soskin,
call a spade a spade.
forever is relative. So hopefully we're all going to be around forever. Okay, I think legislator Grant is next. No, legislator Grant is before, then we'll do legislator Earl, and then we'll do legislator Yeager. Okay, chair, co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share some of Legislator Soskin's concerns, not just about Lake Suzanne, but about a number of projects that are on here. There's over a dozen projects that are currently unfunded and some that are authorized, but no money's been expended for. Then we get to the column for 2023, and it always tells us that money is going to be spent that year. I think it's very, there lacks some transparency here.
Is it pertaining to?
No, this is probably for Bob or Steve DeGroat or Steve Powers. Thanks, Vince. So one thing that I think would be particularly helpful to legislators, if when the next capital budget booklet is prepared like this, that the very first column before currently funded is a column that says date initiated, so that we know whether or not this project was initiated last year, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 16 years ago, by the Board of Supervisors, because it would indicate whether or not this administration or whatever administration is in place, it sees it as a priority. I think that's clear. Some of these projects have been in this capital project book for the entirety of the current administration. Some of them have been in this book for almost the entirety of the previous administration, which was in office for 20 years. So it's not always helpful. Among the projects that get my attention are the Gurney Avenue Bridge, Fields Mount Ivy Road, the courthouse exterior renovations, those kinds of things that just seem to not be currently funded and always get listed in that column for the next year of something going to be done. And I think it's I think there's certainly a lack of transparency there. So those are my general questions. I don't know how best to approach that, but there's over a dozen of these projects in here, and I think it's important for legislators to know what the administration's perspective on some of these projects are and whether or not they have a legitimate intention of moving forward with any of them. So for those that are currently unfunded and no money has been authorized for it, I think I'd like the administration to give us a very brief synopsis of why these projects haven't moved forward and what their intention is with them. And that's not for Nicole to do. I want to be very clear about that. This is not for Nicole to do because she would have no idea what their priorities are.
Sorry, so you want for all projects or for projects beyond a certain date?
For projects that currently have zero funding, but are in this book, zero funding and no authorized funding, right? And I'd like them to be aged. I'd like to know when they were initiated. Yeah, the hibernating projects is a good way of putting it.
Just want the dates they were initiated? Or do you want anything else?
The year it was initiated is fine.
Okay.
All
Is there anything else?
right. I'd like the administration to offer an opinion on whether or not it's a high priority, a low priority, or not a priority at all. Because legislators here have constituents that ask about projects that aren't getting done. And there's really, once we put them into this book, we don't hear a lot about them until they're done or until they're removed. So I think that's important. And I guess one of the other questions I had was, Jen is not here, so maybe no one knows the answer to this. Have the projects in the capital project book been evaluated for eligibility for ARPA funding? You know, I look in drainage and see the pedestrian bridge in West Havistrah over the Minnesiongo. That to me seems like more like a recreation project than a drainage project. Is that eligible for ARPA funding? Because we do parks and ARPA does allow for water and drainage issues. Or is it because it exists in this document, it is not eligible?
Answer that, Steve.
Well,
Your answer, or is it a question you want to know whether the funds can be used?
I want to know if ARPA funds can be used for any of the projects that are listed in the current capital project book, and whether or not their listing here prohibits them from being considered in the capital project book. Because I know that the Messiango pedestrian bridge was in last year's budget. It's in this year's budget. It says there's no money that's been currently funded, but it says there's going to be $300,000 expended for it this year. And I'm not so sure that's the case.
Which project number would that be?
That's 7129. You know, it's not just projects in mine and Jay's district that I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about just transparency overall and understanding better what will be done. And what here is just window dressing. Thank you.
Okay, Legislator Earl.
Vaughn,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
this is in addition to it's in addition to the one that I requested.
Oh, yeah. We currently have 3 action items, 1 by Legislator Soskin, 2 by Legislator Grant. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, Legislator Earl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like Legislator Soskin, we've been grappling with this for like over a decade with these 2 projects. Lake Suzanne, that's in the town of Ramapo, is 70 item number, project number 7105. And also the one 7109, the drainage of Memorial Park. I see where it's been funded. It has been funded for 300,000. Where did that come from? And
It was bonded in the last borrowing, and we're going to roll out soon, like in a matter of weeks, an RFP
money here
to conduct the flood study that we discussed.
okay, we did discuss that. So there is movement.
Yes.
But the project is a $3 million project, and here we have like just 300.
Well, the first step is just to do an alternatives analysis. That's usually our first step. And that would be for an engineering firm to analyze, the amount of water going into the area, how much water actually would have to move, and then analyze, if you could move it, where would it go? Would there be adverse downstream impacts? So they have to look at all that. Do we want to shoot for a 100-year storm? Or maybe that's not possible. Maybe you can only shoot for a 50-year storm. And then they may give us different options and they'll present that to us, and then we could all, with estimates.
Well,
and then we could look at that, with the village and think about what we want to do or not.
I think we're coming up on the 100-year storms. Last summer, I think we had a conversation. Their cars almost in the water down there in that village. I think I heard Legislator Grant say something about ARPA money as far as doing something in that park also. Legislator Grant, did you mention the money as far as doing something for that park? Would that fall into that?
I could communicate to
Jim?
to see maybe some aspect of the project. I mean, right now we're looking just like an engineering analysis to see if we could move the water out of there.
Right.
That's the first step. And then maybe what we do with the park trails or, whatever, we could see what the ARPA may cover.
Okay, because like I said, this has been over a decade. We've been grappling with this. And I remember Legislator Soskin, same project with Lake Suzanne.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're doing other things around the county. We shouldn't be ignored like this for this long. And so, all right, I guess we'll be in touch, Vince.
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes.
Ms. Altieri, I just wanted to publicly thank you and tell the legislature that Ms. Altieri has been very responsive to a certain question that I'd asked him with regard to something within my district. I appreciate your working with me and being forthright and taking care of everything in a very timely manner. So I do
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
And on a lighter note, when you speak to people about dredging Lake Suzanne, make sure you dredge it down to 10 feet because my yacht has a 6-foot draft. I don't want to hit the bottom. Thanks.
Any questions by other legislators? Okay. Nicole, did we cover everything? We covered everything? Okay. Is,
I close my meeting here?
wait a second. We're gonna have, Commissioner DeGraw.
Did a very poor job.
Nice job again, Nicole. Excellent. And Mike also, I want to congratulate both of them, did an excellent job. I'd like to only mention one thing, and just so every legislature here is aware of the position we're in, you're looking at closed projects. I've always pushed for projects to be closed. You know, the government law on projects and the federal guidelines on projects are that once you issue bonds, 80% of proceeds are supposed to be spent in 18 months, and the balance is supposed to be paid in 3 years. Otherwise, you have serious concerns on the issue of tax exemption. So that's one of the reasons I like to see projects closed and the work done as quick as possible. The other item I want to bring to the attention to the legislature is that when you're looking at these items, and you're talking about borrowing, we did discuss something about possibly not borrowing this year, but I do want to mention that over $15 million of capital projects has already, for the coming up year, has already been borrowed from the general fund. So right now, there's $15 million of advanced funds from the general fund for capital projects. That money's already coming out. So if we borrow, we'll replace it. If we don't borrow, then it's that issue will come back to the ledge. The other thing is when Legislator Weider mentioned that these issues come back when we borrow money. Yes, they do. But if we don't borrow money, they come back also because they would have to be taken out of the fund balance, and that would require legislative approval. So either way we go, each item has to come back to the legislature.
So thank you. We're good?
I have a question. So Stephen, when we authorize funding,
yes,
so like for Phil's Lake Suzanne project,
yes,
there's currently nothing funded. There's $5 million that's
right,
been authorized.
Right. So
How long is that authorization good for?
Stays forever. The issue's not on the authorization. That gives you the right to borrow at any time. The issue occurs is when you borrow. That's when the 18 months comes in for 80% and the 3 years. But authorizations could be out there forever.
Yeah, authorizations could be out there forever and give the impression that a project is going to get done and not, and it
you're
doesn't get done.
correct. You're correct. That's right.
Okay. And any questions for now? So this is what I would like to do. We have on the new projects, and I hope everyone out there has a copy. That's the third chart. I'd like to have transportation. Just do literally a less than 5-minute presentation on the new projects, basically the purchase of the buses. I would like to have someone from transportation. I would like to have someone from highway talk about the new project on highway. Is there anyone here for highway? Okay. And then RCC, on the new projects for RCC, and then for sewer. Less than 5 minutes, the presentation on the new projects. So we'll start with transportation first. Do you have a copy of Nicole's? Okay, good.
So for public transportation, we have some programs there that we've identified as new projects. First is for rehab and renovation of building. By the way, all of these projects are 80/10. So the first one is for renovation of the building. Make sure we have the building,
upgrade the generator, lighting, place carpeting, windows, things like that. And the remainder are for bus purposes, as you see. One of those are replaced as two-thirds. About 700,000+ miles on them. We can get moving update. Funds are for buses that we can that's our fleet, the fleet suddenly have 43 buses, we've got by increasing the fleet size, we're going to get that.
Okay.
For that is we have to get it on capital program and then it.
So Commissioner Schutz, thank you for your presentation. And, you know, every time we meet, or most of the time we meet, I'll ask about the issues with transportation in the county. I will tell you that percentage-wise of the amount of requests or reaching out by constituents, including my wife, is on the transportation. So I will ask, is this going to enhance the buses being on time?
Remember what's going into traffic in this county. We can do the best programming we can do.
PPW.
Yeah, so. See in the morning, the impact on the freeway, which is either.
Oh, we need the quorum to be in there. We'll be done soon. Oh, you're not on being in? Oh, okay. No, we need to keep a quorum for our BNF. We need six members of the BNF because we didn't do it at the BNF meeting. So we have, we have six, right? You're on, Chris, you're not on BNF? Legislator Earl, you're staying with us, correct? No, and Legislator Earl? You're staying with us, right? Because we still didn't vote yet on BNF. You guys stay with us, right? Oh, okay. We'll be done shortly. We'll take the vote. Within 20 minutes, we'll be done. Okay. the one thing I can say, yes, the traffic in the county have increased, but unfortunately, it's become the norm. Once it's become the norm, I think that can be built in with the issues. I think that the county is a great county and a great community, a great municipality is one that has a great transportation system. I don't think that anyone can say that we have a great transportation system in Rockland County, and it's something we should work on. I appreciate all the work that you've been doing, and hopefully one day we'll get there. Okay, now we'll have someone from Highway, if you can talk about the new project, the Snake Hill Road Bridge rehabilitation. But again, if you could do it less than 3 minutes, now we're going down. So that partnership is still going to be, yeah. Okay. So the folks from Clarkstown are happy, legislators from Clarkstown? Good. Okay. Now we're down to RCC. So the building key and card access system is, it's pretty simple, I guess.
Universities have a key card access.
Masonry. But nothing specific to a specific building. This is just overall on the campus. Got it. Facility master plan update.
So our last facilities master plan,
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing there is none, we'll move on to sewer. Again, just very briefly, I guess is.
Ask him some questions. Ask him some questions. Yeah.
Who's in the audience?
Oh, yeah.
Interceptor Improvement Project. We put $20 million in. This past year, we did $4.4 million and 3,500 feet of pipe. The pipe was heavily deteriorated. It was built all in the late 60s. So this year, we're actually doing a flow monitoring study after we get that done, or next year, we're doing a flow monitoring study. So after that's done, we'll make a final decision where we're going to either just line the pipe or we're going to actually replace the pipe. And we have hundreds of miles of interceptor that shouldn't all have to get done, but we want to kind of start. We have to televise it and then prioritize where we need to do the improvements. And then for the pump stations screen next. No, Twin Avenue.
Twin
Avenue sewer upgrade. There's a sewer line that's in the village of Spring Valley that we're responsible for maintaining. It's getting near capacity. There's other developments that want to come in, so we want to get that on the table so we don't hinder any development that's potentially go on up there.
Okay, good. I think we covered everything. Any questions? Seeing there is none? Are we closing the meeting?
We are, not you. Timmy is closing the PPW public, and then you continue with the Here's a second.
Okay.
PPW?
Do we have a quorum?
PPW? Yeah, Judge, Terry, Aaron, Mead, and Michael Grant. Yeah,
I'll take a motion to adjourn the formal planning public, Chris, second, so Aaron, all in favor, say aye.
Now we're gonna do B and F. Actually, we'll move items number 1-1 all the way through items number -1, 2, moved by legislator Cornell, seconded by legislator Grant. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Adoption of the minutes of 10/25/2022, moved by legislator Hofstein, seconded by legislator Soskin. All those, any questions? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 2-1, through to 5. Okay. Moved by legislator Grant, seconded by legislator Jobson. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Item number 3-1, referral number 8024, approving acceptance of grant funds in the amount of $28,000, county tag dollars, from the state of New York Governor's Traffic Safety Committee to be used for Stop DWI High Visibility Engagement Campaign, moved by legislator Soskin. Moved by legislator Earl, seconded by legislator Cornell and Soskin. Any discussion? Seeing there is none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries unanimously. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn by legislator Hofstad, seconded by legislator Earl. Anyone opposed? Confirmed. Motion, the motion confirmed. Thank you very much. Oh, man. Steve? Steve, Mr. Powers? Oh, okay.
Waiting for me. You're right.